So a couple things right off the bat here in Land Manager. We have here in the black, which is a filter section. We can filter by client, farm, field, boundaries, guidance lines, and flags. Just note if you have selected one of these boxes, so let's say if I select the straight track, it'll show up the fields that have straight tracks in them. But what it does is it'll actually gray out the boundary and also the two flags that we have associated with this field. So you can't do any editing on those particular things. It limits you only to what is selected over here. So if you want to select one of those others, you can actually uncheck it, and then it will allow you to do that. So just an FYI on that. Here we have a list of fields that we have. We have these icons right by these fields as well that I want to go over really fast. We have archive. We can archive any of these. Create new. That would be, since it's a field, it'd create a new boundary, guidance line, or flag. We have details, which will allow us to, so if I click on the field part of it, if I click on there, we have over here our client and our farm, our base station. This is new. So if you have a Gen 4 display and new enough software on it that it will actually keep track of what base station is associated with your fields, you can tie those two together. And that will transfer to here. We cannot add any base stations here in Operations Center. All this is strictly from the display. We can change maybe a field for a base station, but we can't add anything. So we can actually edit, and we can change our client farm field name. We can edit that base station to a different one if we have. Also, if we go and we click on this arrow, it'll actually drop down. We do have a boundary here. We have a couple more icons. We have a merge icon. If we had another boundary here that we wanted to merge those two boundaries together, we could. If we wanted to copy this boundary and maybe wanted to give it to a different field, we could do that as well. We also have the details, which if we click here, it will allow us to edit this boundary. We can edit. We can rename this boundary, certain things like that. I'm going to cancel back out of there. What this does when you go to edit something, it'll actually collapse your two windows over here. You can collapse and expand these whenever you would like. Back to these icons, right here is the green eye. What that is that's just going to show us a boundary. If we don't want to see that boundary, it'll take that off the map, just like that. If we have a bunch of different things that are showing here that we didn't want, we can actually hit this hide all button, and it will hide all of those, basically take the show off of it. So neat little feature there. Sometimes you get a little too much on a map and you don't remember where you're working. That's a good button to just basically wipe the slate clean. What I have here today is I have this test field that I want to actually draw a boundary for. So what I can come down to is I can create new, and create a boundary. To this instance, I'm going to draw one, but if we had a previous operation, let's say a planting or harvest pass, we could select that, but I'm going to draw this one this time. And we have to enter in a name. And what I'm going to do is we have three different tools over here. We have a polygon, we have a circle, and a square. So if you have perfectly square field or a pivot, you can use those two. For this instance, and what most fields you will want is a polygon, and what you're doing is you're just clicking along the outside, and you're going to click around the edge of that field. If you want to be really particular, you can really zoom in and get really down to it if you want to. In this case, for time's sake, I'm just going to go a little bit beyond. When you get close to done, you actually have to click on that first point that you made, and then when it fills in, that's when you have that boundary. We will say, yes, this is the active boundary. It is an exterior one, and we will save this. Okay. Next, I'm going to actually add a guidance line. We can create straight track guidance lines in Operations Center. We can view curved tracks, but we cannot create them. So what I'm going to do is we can create a straight track. It will be associated with this field name, and we have to have implement track spacing. So I'm just going to say a 16-row planter is 40 feet. We'll hit next. So here I have my A point that I have to start out with. If I have a specific latitude, longitude that I want to use, I can type that in there, or you can click on the map. So here's my A point, and wherever I click next will be my B. So if I click there, my heading is 1.25. Now, if I wanted to maneuver this a little bit, I can. It will change that heading. If I want to lock that heading in, I can also do that. If you just want a straight north-south at a 0 degrees, you can click that button. If you want a 90 for an east and west, it will do that as well. Even if you want to do that. So we will have to name it again. What this options button here is enable to snap to boundary. What this is designed to do is to allow these points to snap to that boundary like that. So let's say if we're going to plant north and west, and we usually base it off of this side of the boundary. If I zoom in closely, we're 40 feet off of that. So what it does is it allows us to get that desired heading that is right along that boundary. That way we can line up that perfect heading for that first pass going back and forth between the field. So that's a nice feature that they have there. So I will save this. And what I want to show you next is we can actually export this field. So if I come in and I select this field, I can actually export. I'm going to export to a PDF, and it's going to load here. 1 second. Okay, now that it's loaded, it will pop up in a PDF, and here we just have a picture of the field that we created along with the guidance line. And we scroll down a little further, and it has those basically labeled. If we had flags in here, it would label them as well, but basically it's going to give us a reference of 20 acres, and it's going to give our latitude, longitude, and our heading. So you may send this to like an agronomist, just to that way you can tell where your field is, what you call it, or maybe you want to give this to an employee of he needs to be here to load seed or something like that as well.